when we talked to Kerry Combs this past week, he had been with Urban Meyer from 2012 through 2017, and he said he's never seen anything like it. And then he mentioned what Ryan Day is doing, and it's called the Circle of Care. And then Kevin Wilson talked about it as well, and it's just this all-encompassing approach to providing for the student athlete. And I think Kevin Wilson said, picture it, the block O, and then the student athlete is inside that block O. And then the O is everything that Ohio State provides for that player, be it, training, mental health, nutrition, education, just training for life, the Real Life Wednesday that we've talked about. And ever since the Real Life Wednesday implemented, I think 2017 was like the first real year it brought in recruits. Like when we talked to Jeff Okuda and Baron Browning and those guys, the early enrollees, they talked about what an impact this was for them and how it was a decider. And it also impacts the parents because they see this holistic approach to providing for their sons, and the parents are on board before the players are. And, as Woody would always say, recruit the mom or whatever, and they're recruiting parents, and the parents see what is available for them. And I keep seeing these Wonderlic scores being posted on the screen, and just it's a pretty impressive approach as to how Ohio State is going about recruiting, and all of the coaches talk about, you got to find the right fit. And then if they're the right fit and then they fit the athletic requirements, then they can move forward. But it's so much more about fit right now, which sounds corny or cheesy. It's like, Notre Dame has to recruit a certain level of academic player, but there's just a lot of good dudes when we talk to them, and we get to talk to like the early enrollees every year, and it's pretty, pretty early on, like the kind of kids you're dealing with, and it's been a steady flow of decent people in and out of Ohio State. And I think that's that's a testament to how they're going about it, how the grading system that they have, the recruiting process that they have. And, then you see success in the NFL draft and on the field and all of that good stuff too.
Yeah, it's about the culture. I mean, it's about the locker room. There may be kids that Ohio State could have had an opportunity to pursue that just wouldn't have been a good fit for one reason or another, as Tony talked about. And, that's why Mark Bantoni does such a good job. That's why Tory Majors and everybody else in that recruiting office does such a good job, because they have to go through and fully vet all this stuff. And we can sit there and go through and see where, when some issues have happened in the past, and, generally maybe somebody who hasn't necessarily been a total ideal citizen might lead somebody else down a bad path or whatever. So, the best way to insulate yourself from that is to have a locker room full of good dudes. And, maybe you do miss out on a guy or two because, you don't want to necessarily lower the bar to be able to get somebody in. And, we see these kids throughout the recruiting process. We get to talk to them, during interview sessions and whatnot. We don't get to spend hours upon hours with them. We don't know what they're like at all times, but it really just does seem like Ohio State has, as Tony put it, a bunch of good dudes on that roster.
It's ironic that we've got what appears to be a Miami fan, and I had posted the first comment about the recruiting, the cheating, and Steve Dace, a Michigan podcast, comes on here on a regular basis. He's got a lot of connections with Rivals, 247 Sports, a lot of recruiting, and he says this all the time. He says, I got to admit, I just scour those guys for information and rumors about cheating, and they never bring up Ohio State. They say we never hear anything about Ohio State, and they will march down, each conference and what they hear, and we're going to the dregs of the conferences that have 60th rated recruiting classes that have apparent issues. And again, a lot of it's just rumor, but when it's out there for years and years and years, and he's got to admit, I never hear anything about Ohio State.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, there's so much at stake. And Urban, would always say, if I ever hear any hint of anything, underhanded, I'm going to fire you on the spot. And, it is an interesting landscape out there for sure. Very competitive. And again, are we naive to think that a lot of the things that happen in basketball don't happen in football? I mean, they're documented in basketball to the point that it's been testified to in federal courtrooms, but they still can't put the offenders away, so to speak, and bring NCAA allegations against these people, or at least they move at a glacial pace to try and do it. But in football, you don't hear a whole heck of a lot of those type of things. You hear rumblings here and there sometimes, but again, I think it's such high stakes, and I think it's such a good product. And I think that if people put their 3 or 4 years in at Ohio State, and as I'm doing the analysis, as I continue to bring it up every week of these past classes, if you started at Ohio State for 2 seasons, the odds of you being drafted the NFL are very good. I'd put it at about 60 to 70%. A lot of times, guys that started more than 1 season at Ohio State are going to get drafted. Now, is it first round? No, it could be 5, 6, 7, but the odds of you getting drafted in the NFL. So there is quite a bit there at stake for these kids when they get into the program at Ohio State to become the best that they can be. So that makes it very interesting.